In my province of Saskatchewan, I've seen reserves burn down water treatment plants because this government has done little or nothing.
Tonight, a heated debate in the House of Commons over a Conservative MP's comments.
They need support while they're in the system.
An MLA in Saskatchewan is calling for programs to help Indigenous women reconnect with their families after being incarcerated. And a new report out of the North on how to deal with natural disasters. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. Winter roads in northern Manitoba are melting due to warmer weather, and that has some remote First Nations in the province calling for a state of emergency. Sav Jonza has more.
4 First Nations in remote northern Manitoba are declaring a state of emergency due to the quick deterioration of their winter road network, the only way in or out of the communities by land.
Right now, the winter roads that have been completed are deteriorating to a point where one chief told me that driving on their winter road is like driving on a sponge.
Relying on winter roads to receive fuels, food, and construction equipment has become difficult due to unseasonably warm weather. Close to 1,000 semi-truck loads of essential goods are delayed getting to the island lake communities of St. Teresa Point, Garden Hill, Red Sucker Lake, and Wasagamacq Ansinan Nations because of the conditions. Charles Knott is the chief for Garden Hill First Nation.
We haven't gotten any loads in this year. Our winter roads are not even open yet. The winter road crew are still battling trying to open the winter roads. It's just unreal how the climate has changed this year. And I'm very concerned that I just got word from my community that we only have about a week left of our field.
Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs Grand Chief Kathy Merrick says First Nations peoples are feeling the impacts of climate change.
First Nations people are among the lowest contributors to greenhouse emissions in this country. Yet research shows they are among the most exposed to climate change and the impacts of climate change.
Her and the other chiefs have called on the province to declare a state of emergency to assist the communities.
They can no longer wait. When it rains in February in this province, they need the help, they need the assistance now.
The state of emergency declaration comes a week after the same First Nations proposed a 252-kilometer all-season road to connect to Barons River First Nation. Sav Jonza, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
A new report in the Northwest Territories outlines how governments and organizations can improve their response to natural disasters. The document comes after a review of the 2021 historic floods in the territory. A territorial level review recommends 16 areas for improvement. This includes more planning for evacuees with addictions and mental health, doing something about the delay of critical supplies, and a need for more training. The report shows how members of the public and governments rated the response. The territory says it shared information effectively, while the public disagreed. For example, some evacuees assumed they'd be getting hotel accommodations rather than being put up in an evacuation center, and they were unaware about disaster assistance. The 2021 flooding displaced hundreds and caused more than $40 million in damages. To Ottawa now, and there was fiery debate over the Trudeau government's new First Nations Clean Water Act in the House of Commons on Monday. And things got even more heated after a Conservative MP gave his 2 cents during debate. APTN's Fraser Needham explains.
Water quality is a problem on many First Nations, and the proposed Bill C-61 is supposed to do something about that by protecting water sources, creating minimum drinking water standards, and providing sustainable funding for water quality on First Nations. During debate in Parliament on Monday, Saskatoon Conservative MP Kevin Waugh had this to say.
You know, the previous Conservative government left 8.5 years ago. We still have over 100 water advisories on First Nations. In my province of Saskatchewan, I've seen reserves burn down water treatment plants because this government has done little or nothing.
Waugh went on further.
And the other thing, Madam Speaker, is these water treatment plants need education, and they need people on reserve to operate the water treatment plants. And that's part of the problem that we've seen with this government the last 8.5 years.
Indigenous Services Minister Patty Haidu responded.
Well, Madam Speaker, trust a Conservative member to blame First Nations people for burning down their own water treatment plants and not being smart enough to be able to understand how to operate those plants. That's the kind of paternalism, Madam Speaker, that led to 105 long-term boil water advisories. They just weren't worth investing in, I guess.
The Liberals have been criticized for failing to live up to a 2015 commitment to eliminate all long-term drinking water advisories on First Nations by 2021. According to the Indigenous Services Canada website, there were 28 long-term drinking water advisories in place on First Nations as of January 19th of this year. 5 of these were in Saskatchewan. Bill C-61, which was introduced just before Christmas, is supposed to bring the government closer to meeting this commitment. But Haidu continued to take issue with Waugh's comments in particular on Tuesday.
Well, the implication that people would burn water treatment plants out of spite, out of anger at the government, out of a sense of, wanton destruction, I think, came through loud and clear in his comments. And I will just say that we see acts of arson in non-Indigenous communities as well. So there is a stereotype that somehow Indigenous people don't take care of the equipment or their housing or their community infrastructure, and that is a long-standing, very harmful and hurtful stereotype.
APTN News reached out to Kevin Waugh's office, asking him to provide clarity for his comments from the previous day, but did not hear back by airtime. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Indigenous knowledge is a topic being discussed on Parliament Hill. The Standing Committee on Science and Research is looking at how to integrate it into government policy. The intent is to help resolve ongoing conflicts between the two systems. The committee heard from 5 witnesses today, including Lindsay Heller, who is an Indigenous fellow from Simon Fraser University. Liberal MP Helena Jazik asked Heller to give some examples of how Indigenous knowledge has been incorporated into research which has had a lasting effect.
There are a number of actively used therapeutics and anti-cancer medicines that were discovered, and I'm using air quotes for those that are sight impaired, by Western scientists, but were directed to those researchers by Indigenous people as plants. Pacific Yew, for example.
The Nunavut municipality of Pangertung has entered into a partnership with Jordan's Principle under Indigenous Services to assist Inuit families with food supports. The municipality made the announcement earlier this week, saying they have secured $5.4 million to launch a food voucher program for Inuit families with children up to 18 years old. It's designed to support purchases of food, baby formula, and diapers. According to the Arctic Children and Youth Foundation, Inuit families are increasingly relying on programs like the Inuit Child First Initiative or Jordan's Principle for food. We've reached out to the municipality of Pangertung but did not receive comment prior to airtime. New funding from the federal government has been announced to try and tackle rent affordability and rising grocery prices. Canada's Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland announcing about $99 million to top up the Canada Housing Benefit, and Industry Minister François-Philippe Champagne announcing $5 million to investigate grocery price inflation. On housing, the Trudeau government is providing more money to help low-income Canadians who rent their homes. The benefit was set up in 2022 and has given out about $400 million in rent support to more than 800,000 people. Here's more from Friedland today.
This benefit helps make rent affordable by delivering rent support payments directly to Canadians. The Canada Housing Benefit was launched in 2020 and has helped many Canadians since then. And today's announcement means that by 2027-2028, this benefit will have helped make rent more affordable for over 300,000 low-income households.
The government also announced $100 million in emergency winter funding to increase access to shelter spaces across Canada. The money will help shelters in 85 communities expand, offer more services, and provide more warming spaces and meals. The federal government is also investing $5 million to help investigate rising grocery prices. The money will support 6 consumer advocacy groups who will be tasked with looking into inflation and harmful business practices.
Projects that they will be undertaking are going to be all on grocery affordability. And they will tackle things, and I've been on this podium talking to you about 2 things that really concern me about shrinkflation and skimflation. You know, how can we've seen that, and this is more and more prevalent in the marketplace, and I think it's more common than we would like to see and certainly believe, and therefore they're going to help us to make sure that we inform consumer and we tackle that.
The minister says developing better consumer advocacy and research will help the government hold grocers and manufacturers more accountable. Well, we'd like to hear how housing and grocery store prices are affecting you. Here's how you can continue the conversation. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. You can read and watch our stories by going to our website. That's aptn.ca. And you can find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Time to step aside for a quick break. Still to come, calls for more support for Indigenous women in prison.
Many people have trauma in their lives. They need support while they're in the system.
Welcome back. Saskatchewan is no stranger to the overrepresentation of Indigenous women in federal prison. However, the Saskatchewan NDP's opposition critic says more should be done with reconnecting these women with their families. Reporter Rachel May has more.
When it comes to incarcerated women, many have family at home. Opposition critic for First Nations and Métis Relations Betty Nippy Albright is calling for programs that focus on family reunification prior to women being released. She's also calling for programs that address the problems that these women are facing.
There needs to be supports for healing because many of our Indigenous women, many people have trauma in their lives. They need support while they're in the system.
Nippy Albright says that the province keeps talking about the programs they have, but not about where they can improve.
We don't evaluate. So the current programs that are in, I would be wondering, how successful are they? How effective are they? Are they working with community organizations to start that bridging program?
At the time of release, Nippy Albright says that many women are left without jobs and no way of accessing income assistance to support their families. She's calling for collaboration between staff in the institutions as well as community organizations that help women succeed when they're released.
Navigators is what we need to help them to be successful.
Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
RCMP in Manitoba and the Canadian Border Services Agency recently announced the largest narcotic seizure in history on the prairies. RCMP say the $50 million meth bust was the equivalent to 4 million doses. But busts like this could have unintended consequences. For more on that, we're joined by Vinnie Lilly, who himself is a former addict and gang member. and is now a motivational speaker, author, and member of the Downtown Community Safety Partnership in Winnipeg. Vinny, appreciate you taking some time for us here. On the surface, you know, a $50 million drug seizure sounds like great news, but we know that there can be some unintended consequences. So what came to your mind when you heard about this latest bust?
Well, I mean, obviously, it can definitely have its major benefits in order for them to make the seizure. But yeah, I work the front lines and stuff in the shelters and on the streets and stuff, so I can kind of see a lot of the other effects that might have when it comes to a seizure, especially with that size.
Like you mentioned, you work directly with some of the most vulnerable and people who have addictions issues in Winnipeg. What would be some of the concerns about huge meth bust like this?
Well, I mean, speaking from firsthand knowledge, I know for a fact that even for me, when it came to my addiction, I'm like, you know, like I had my drug of choice, and when that drug of choice wasn't around, I ended up switching to whatever it was that was around. And so a lot of the time that when that happens is that's what the addicts do, is that they switch to another drug if they don't have another drug to get high off of. So then that's what's happening when there's no meth. These people are switching to other drugs, and then what happens is now one of the main drugs that's taking over is the heroin and the down, and so then they end up switching to that. And then obviously, I know that meth is a really bad drug, and it really does affect you mentally quite a bit. But I don't believe that you can overdose or die from it unless it's mixed with something else. So then what happens is when they switch to the other drug, which is like heroin or down, there's a lot more opportunity for them to overdose and to die.
When these big busts happen, Vinny, and this one, the RCMP says will likely have an impact not just on Manitoba, but Western Canada, parts of Ontario. Well, what do you think could be done to alleviate some of these unintended consequences?
Well, I guess it's a sad reality that there really isn't much that can really be done, because the truth of the matter is that when this kind of size of seizure happens, the suicide rate will go up, the crime rate will go up, the overdose rate will go up, and so it's really hard to even reach these people, even on a one-to-one basis. And so that's the sad reality, is that there really isn't much that can be done. And then the people who are involved in the addictions, they have to really feel the consequences of what it is that comes with the lacking of the drug.
Vinny, it's only been about a week since the bust was announced, but what are you seeing out on the streets here in Winnipeg?
I mean, honestly, the people who are affected by this, who are involved in the addiction, they already have enough struggles as it is on their own, especially if they're involved in being homeless. It's just crazy. But then I'm seeing that people are talking and they know the effects that's going to happen, and they see it because they're not being able to find what they need. And so what happens is they're already living their lives in survival mode, and to elevate that anymore is just causing them to be in more of a heightened state of survival mode, which then just causes more intense critical thinking that's just not logical, and then that just really affects their behavior. And so the behavior that I see is very uncontrollable and erratic as it is when it comes to the heightened emotions. But then when you throw all that on top of that again, it just gets so much more deeper and more intense.
Vinny, we'll leave it there, but appreciate you sharing some of your experiences with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
And for more with Vinny Lilly, a reminder, he was a guest on Face to Face last season and detailed his journey from the streets to incarceration to now helping the city's most vulnerable. You can find that episode over on our website, aptnnews.ca. Well, after the break, we'll have a preview of tonight's episode of Face to Face. Stick around. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. From the heart of Quebec, Natasha sent in this soothing skyline as the backdrop for some leafless trees during the winter weather. Thanks for sharing with us. You could be our next photo of the day by sending your pictures to share@aptn.ca. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the east coast, cloudy and +2 for Halifax, 0 in Fredericton. 18 below with snow in Kuujjuaq, flurries and 6 below for Nain. -4 in Montreal, +2 with snow in Val-d'Or. 6 and cloudy in Sault Ste. Marie, cloudy and 3 in North Bay. +2 under cloudy skies in Thunder Bay, 3 above in Sioux Lookout. -5 with snow in God's Lake, 3 below and snow in Norway House. Cloudy and +2 in Winnipeg, 1 with snow in Dauphin. 0 with snow in Regina, -1 with snow in Saskatoon. -5 with snow in Meadow Lake, 13 below and snow in Stony Rapids. In northern Alberta, -9 in High Level, cloudy and -6 in Grand Prairie. 5 below with snow in Edmonton, -6 in Lethbridge. 7 for Vancouver and Victoria, snow in 3 in Kamloops. -2 with snow in Prince George, 3 below and snow in Smithers. -27 in Old Crow, 13 below for Whitehorse. -16 in Yellowknife, 19 below and snow in Norman Wells. -19 with snow in Sax Harbor, 21 below in Pawlatuck. -29 for Chesterfield and Cambridge Bay. 27 below in Resolute, -32 in Joe Haven. Prior to becoming the first Anishinaabe premier of a province in Canada, Wab Kinew was a rapper, broadcaster, and author. And while he was viewed as a potential leader from the day he announced he was running for the Manitoba NDP, Kinew's journey to the premier's office has been rocky at times. Tonight, on an encore presentation of Face to Face, Kinew discusses the tough questions he has faced over the years over his past.
I never feel sorry for myself, and I don't think it's a good idea for politicians to make it about themselves. It's not about us, not about me. It's about the people. It's about the public who deserve to have good public servants working on their behalf, but they also, the public, you the people, deserve to ask tough questions of the people running for office. And so I've had my fair share of ups and downs and moments of being held accountable over the years, but my attitude is to just show up and answer the questions and then try to talk to people about what I want to do to make things better and make things more positive in the future.
And you can catch our interview with Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew right here in about 90 seconds from now. That is all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Tuesday. For news anytime, you can visit our website. That's aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy McGwitch, thanks for being with us. Stick around for Face to Face. Have a great night.